Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2018-2019 NFL season review video. It's been a great season this past year, and it's been a rough couple weeks for me since the season ended, especially after how defensive and offensively challenged Super Bowl 53 was, but it still was a great defensive game. I enjoyed the matchup that way. But I am counting down the days before the Hall of Fame induction ceremony and the Hall of Fame game to restart. So I am really excited about that. But I just wanted to give some quick thoughts on just the overall year and some of my big stories for next year or for the offseason of next year. So I got the Super Bowl correct. I took the Patriots beating the Rams in the game. And so overall for the year, I believe I'm 168. Give me 1 second. Let me pull this up here. For the year. Let's see. I ended up going for the year. I ended up going 166, 99, and 2, which equals about 62.7%, which I am really happy about for the regular season and the postseason combined. For the postseason overall, I went 7-4, which I am good with there. So that equals up about a little over 60% there as well. So definitely next year, I'm hoping to get more opportunities to stay consistent with my against the spread picks and my straight up picks, and I will make it a focus next year to try to focus on those more consistently and have videos out there. They may not be as long, but I will try to get more consistent on putting up videos every week with my against the spread and straight up picks. So there's my overall record for the year. To look at this year, there were so many interesting stories that went on up and down um, the teams and everything. You had all the rookie quarterbacks from Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen, and Lamar Jackson all having opportunities to play and start in games and try to make an impact. Baker obviously was the most successful one, starting with the game in starting with the Jets game that he took over, and from that point on, he was a starting quarterback, and he had the most successful rookie year out of all those guys rookie years in terms of total statistics, in terms of completion percentage, yards, TDs. He did a fantastic job, and honestly, for Browns fans, for the first time since Bernie Kosar, I think you have genuinely found a franchise quarterback that you can believe in. I'm going to give credit to Baker there. Darnold and Allen and Rosen, they were kind of a mixture, I feel like, this year of just rough play, injuries, not much around them, and just really kind of mediocre to bad play. I actually probably out of all those three, I'd probably give Josh Allen the nod because the one thing that was the most impressive thing is that Josh Allen actually has pretty good athletic feet. And I know a lot of people want to kind of compare him to like Roethlisberger or Flacco in an athletic sense. I think he's actually much better than that because he ended up this past season leading the Bills in rushing. I know LaShawn McCoy missed some games, but for Josh Allen to go from from game two to the end of the year to beat LaShawn McCoy in rushing yards, that's a pretty impressive feat. And I do think the Bills can use that rushing ability in the future to, make some plays. Darnold, I kind of, I'm a Sam Darnold fan, and I really think he's a good quarterback. But this year, he didn't really have that many great moments or opportunities. Some of that was on him. His first throw was a pick six, just like Brett Favre. So that was one of those frustrating things there. But I thought Sam Darnold played, below average. But now with Adam Gase as head coach and Dowell Loggins as his co-offensive coordinator, I do hope that he can improve and play up to the level that I think he can. And that same argument you could feel, I feel with Rosen, with Cliff Kingsbury. Though I do want to say, for Steve Wilkes' sake, I do feel bad for him in the sense that I think that was a sham to have a coach fired after 1 year. And I thought I was a pretty, stringent guy in terms of not giving coaches that many opportunities. But no coach deserves to get fired after 1 year um, on a job where he really didn't have that much. But now with Cliff Kingsbury taking the job from being the Texas Tech head coach the previous year, I do wonder how successful he will be because he was not a very good college coach. His college career is kind of one where it's not really that notable in terms of NFL prospects. Like he helped Case Keenum get his job, or Case Keenum get into the NFL because he broke all of Houston's records. But to say the least, when Case Keenum is the most successful quarterback in your school's history, that is a huge that is a problem, especially for a guy that now, after just 2 years ago getting to the NFC Championship game, 2 years later he's going to be wandering on the free agent market as a quality backup. That's kind of remarkable how in that much of a 2 year span things can change in the NFL just like that. But Case Keenum, Johnny Manziel, he's the offensive coordinator with Kevin Sumlin at when Johnny Manziel was there, and Manziel was great and he was dynamic, but Johnny's not doing anything in the league right now, and nobody cares. I think the biggest reason why Cliff Kingsbury got that job was because he knew of a guy, and he basically groomed a guy named Patrick Mahomes, who ended up being the MVP this year, in one of the most great surprising stories of the year. But I want to say good luck to Steve Wilkes in Cleveland. I think he will do a good job with that defensive staff, with the defensive talent they have, and guys like Christian Kirksey, Jabril Peppers, not Julius Peppers, who retired, Jabril Peppers, Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, Emmanuel Agba, Joe Sherbert. You have a lot of talented Browns players there in that defense that can make an impact with him being the defensive coordinator. So I talked about Allen, I talked about Darnold, I talked about Rosen, and then you have Lamar, who will be. He was the most successful one in terms of results, and I do want to congratulate him on that. And that 6-1 run got him now the starting job for the Ravens. As a Ravens fan, I hope he will do well, but I have a lot of reservations just in the terms of the amount of open throws that he missed and the limited amount of confidence that I saw out of him being able to throw from the pocket or just throwing in general does concern me. I do hope Greg Roman is new offensive coordinator after we let Marty Morningwig go. I do hope Greg Roman, who's had a history with guys like Colin Kaepernick, Tyrod Taylor, that he can make Lamar Jackson a more efficient and effective and accurate thrower, because if he can do that and still keep a good amount of his mobility, I think it will be a tremendous step moving forward that way. But yeah, I think that was one of the big stories. All the rookie quarterbacks, having the opportunities to, be successful or just get their legs wet. And obviously, guys like Baker and Lamar were more successful, or guys like Darnold and Rosen weren't. And Allen's kind of the middle guy, because I really feel like the Bills, for where they started getting blown out 44-7 against the Ravens, to have the year they had, they beat the Vikings. They were able to beat the Dolphins. They were able to beat the Titans. They were able to get some quality wins, and by the end of the year, they were being an okay team. And Sean McDermott actually did a pretty decent job. What I would say is I kind of compare him to what Todd Bowles did the year before with the Jets, where Todd Bowles was supposed to go 0-16 by a lot of people. Even Colin Cowherd said he thought the Jets were going to go 0-16. They ended up going 5-11, which is nothing to be happy about. But the way they looked at 5-11, that was a respectable 5-11 team with a lot of close games that they could have won or could have stole. So that's where I kind of feel like McDermott's Bills were this year. Where if you look at the team on paper, yeah, it wasn't that talented. They let Kelvin Benjamin go mid-trade. Corey Coleman went left. They really didn't have anything. LaShawn got hurt. They had some defensive injuries. But to get 6-10, to look as effective as they did, and to kind of compete in the games as they did, there's a bright optimism there that with as much cap room as they have, and kind of with how McDermott's building a defense, they can kind of get back up to relevancy quickly within the next year or two. And I do want to congratulate Kyle Williams on a great career. He retired, and I wish him well. But let's see, I talked about all the rookie quarterbacks. But then you look at a lot of some of the other kind of mediocre or disappointing teams this year. There were plenty of them. You look at the New York Giants with how with Pat Shermer, and they start out 1-7, and they end up going on a 5 out of 6 streak. But it was a little too late. But the only impressive thing the Giants were able to do really was with Saquon Barkley, who was the Rookie of the Year from the NFL honors. But I thought he did I believe that's a positive influence. Odell Beckham had a pretty good year, but then he got hurt again and missed the final 4 games. But just to be clear, the Giants' offense without Odell Beckham did not lose that much of a step. Yeah, they weren't able to win those games, but they were still able to put up a good amount of points. So that does make you wonder how valuable is Odell to to the Giants, because I've heard reports that the Giants may trade him. I don't think I would at this point, nor do I think of how much guarantee money they still have left to pay him. It's not as an enviable position to try to have to trade him with that much guaranteed money. I know people would take him, but I do think for the Giants, Odell should remain there. But the Giants' offensive line wasn't that effective. But the Giants' defense, that was the one where it was kind of just surprising at the beginning of the year how ineffective they looked, how kind of uninspired they were. And you just looked at the Giants, it's just kind of this old team now that, they should move on from Eli Manning. I do think they should, draft a quarterback in the first round. And probably would be Dwayne Haskins. Because I read the report the other day or a couple of days ago saying that they thought Kyler Murray, who chose to play football instead of going with the Oakland A's as the 9th overall pick in the MLB draft. I do want to say though for that, I think Kyler is the more dynamic athlete, and I think Kyler has more of an opportunity to play well. And I think Kyler's big game experience matters more than Haskins' intangibles. Because I know Haskins tangibles. How about that? Haskins' tangibles are much more appealing to most general NFL scouts, but Kyler's has had a little more success, and he's had those playoff moments that I think are key. And also, Kyler's dealt with a lot more kind of adversity going through the Texas A&M saga to getting to Oklahoma, to having to play behind Baker Mayfield, to getting his opportunity to start. I think the Giants should consider trying to take Murray that way. So, because I think Kyler will be a better overall talent than Dwayne Haskins. But yeah, I thought the Giants, especially what they had, were a incredible disappointment. And then the other big disappointment, you have Jacksonville with all that defensive talent and all that going on. They couldn't do anything. And after, their high moment was beating the Patriots in a redemption AFC Championship game. But then after that, they couldn't do anything right. Their last one was against the Jets. Then they went on a massive losing streak where, Blake Bortles did something remarkable. He made a $54 million contract for a guy that has 2 playoff wins. And there's not that many quarterbacks, that could say, hey, a guy with 2 playoff wins and 1 play away from getting to the Super Bowl is going to get benched and make a $54 million contract in this NFL cap era that we're in look awful. Blake Bortles did something pretty remarkable there. But yeah, but that was the weird thing. It really wasn't the defense's fault. They ended up being 4th in points and 5th in yards, the second fewest passing yards allowed. But their biggest issue was the running game defense. They were 19th in giving up rushing yards, and they gave up the 9th most rushing touchdowns. And Leonard Fournette is, to me, he's on a very big year now because, he dealt with injuries his first year, but he was pretty effective. This year was a complete wash just due to injury. But the Jags have very little offensive talent to move around. Dante Moncrief is probably going to leave. You're going to have D.D. Westbrook, Keelan Cole. You're going to have a lot of these guys, and you're going to move on from Wake Bortles. So the Jags should be in a position to get a quarterback because they need one. Doug Marrone had his mulligan this year, but with how the Jags have been talking, I am going to tell everybody now: do not be surprised if the Jags have another losing record next year. That Doug Marrone doesn't get fired. And if I'm the Jags as well, I am also firing Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman's been there way too long. And I think Tom Coughlin, could find another GM that kind of fits his own ability. Again, Coughlin deserves a little bit of flack too, but I think Coughlin's going to survive through Marrone, through Gettleman, and then they'll get another head coach to give Coughlin an opportunity. If Coughlin fails again, then you might have to let Coughlin go or try to ask him to resign. But I think the Jags were an incredibly, disappointing story. And now you have guys like Malik Jackson, who's probably going to leave. They already cut Barry Church. AJ Boye may be a cap casualty. Calais Campbell, due to his age. You're going to have a lot of moving pieces on this Jags defense. And with how barren the Jags offense looks right now, this Jags team is really, you could say, they were more of a one-year flash than they were going to be a consistent new threat due to the way they played this past year. Then let me see. Let me go through some other points here. The myriad of mediocre teams. The Titans, are the Titans. They end up, at 9-7 again. With a quality defense. Though they do need to find a pass rusher because Brian O'Rackler just retired. And Jarrell Casey is coming off an injury to end the year. I know they're going to keep him, but they need to find some pass rushers. Butler and Malcolm Butler and Adoree did, Malcolm Butler kind of had a rough beginning to the year. By the end of the year, he's playing pretty well. And Derrick Henry was a nice bright spot for their running game. Conklin went down another injury, if I remember correctly. And they're going to have to try to maybe think of also another compliment for Delanie Walker, who broke his leg in week 1 and was out for the entire year. But I just look at the Titans, just the same team. Marcus Mariota is who he is. And now he's going to have another new offensive coordinator because their past offensive coordinator accepted the Green Bay Packers head coaching job, Matt LaFleur. But yeah, I just look at the Titans and I say they're just the same old Titans. Like, they're not going to really try to improve anything. Mariota is he's a weekend game manager just due to his numbers. He's been constantly, banged up through, the last couple of years where he's always been able to miss a game or two just for some injury. And I just don't think the Titans, look, Mike Vrabel's going to get, a good job. He went 9-7, but so did Mike Vrabel, or so did Mike Mularkey, who's now the tight end coach in Atlanta. Mike Vrabel, that's what you're going to end up being. But at least the argument with Mularkey is, well, at least he has a playoff win. So I know Vrabel has another 2 years, and Mike Vrabel, for the most part, he did have some high moments, especially that 34-10 beatdown of the Patriots. But, at the end of the day, you end up having Blaine Gabbert out there, get thoroughly beaten by Andrew Luck and the Colts, who Andrew Luck hasn't lost to in his entire tenure. And if you're going to try to win the AFC South, you're going to have to go to that team in Indy, in the Colts, who I think, this is my opinion, I think Andrew Luck and the Colts are set up. They are set up for a Peyton Manning type run in that division. Any Texans fans that are upset, I'm sorry, but I just genuinely feel that way. I think Bill O'Brien is not that good of a coach. I would not have given him that 5-year extension they did after the 2017 year. I would have let him play out 2018, and I wouldn't even give him a 5-year extension after this year, even though he made the playoffs. Bill O'Brien is getting the Texans to a point that they are becoming Bengals, Steelers, or that kind of esque, where, until the Texans win a playoff game, until the Texans do something relevant in the postseason, Nobody outside of Houston, maybe even some people in Houston, nobody's going to care what the Houston Texans are going to do from week 1 to week 17 of the regular season. They can win 8, or they can win 9, 10, 11, 12 games even in a year. Nobody's going to care because they're all going to care when they play in that Saturday 4:35 game against whoever they play at home or away or at home in the wild card round. But that's what I feel about the Colts. I honestly feel like the Colts are in that third ranking spot. If you're talking about the representatives of the AFC, my top 3 in this order are the Patriots should be number 1, the Chiefs should be number 2, and the Indianapolis Colts are my number 3 team. I think they are in a kind of underrated role, especially how they ended the year, winning 10 of their last 11 games. Andrew Luck, offensive line has been beefed up tremendously and has played much more effectively because they got 2 All-Pros, or they got an All-Pro in Quentin Nelson, who's done a phenomenal job reshifting that line, and Darius Leonard, who was a defensive rookie of the year, has done a phenomenal job as well. He led the league in tackles, and I still can't believe he did not make a Pro Bowl. And I just think, again, the Colts right now, and the reason why I'm going to take the Colts over the Texans is the Texans, they have $79 million in cap space. Because they just cut Demarius Thomas, which saved them another $14 million. What the Texans need to do is 3 things. 1, improve that offensive line. I know they signed Henderson to a 1-year deal. They need to go out with that kind of money and find 1 or 2 linemen in the draft or in free agency to help bolster that line to let Deshaun Watson throw the football. Number 2, they need to find another wide receiver to complement DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins has been fantastic and phenomenal throughout his entire career, and he showed that again this year. But now with Demarius Thomas gone, there is no other outside threat that any defense is playing Houston has to worry about. Will Fuller is an injury-prone bust. Demarius Thomas just got cut. Do you want to go Vincent Smith? Do you want to go Bruce Ellington or whoever? They cut Braxton Miller a year before. I'm saying I can't really name Kiki Cutie. That might be the guy. And he did okay, but he was banged up through most of this year as well either. But the Texans need to find another quality wide receiver to help this team out. And number 3, I cut Lamar Miller. I move on from him or try to trade him and bring in Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell to the Texans seems perfect to me. He could be that perfect asset to help offset their receivers and provide Deshaun Watson a very good rested running back on a team that's ready to win, ready to try to make a deeper run they have. And Bill O'Brien needs this because I feel like, again, if Bill O'Brien misses the playoffs this upcoming season, he will be fired, and justifiably so. Let me see here. So there's Houston, Tennessee. You look at some of the other mediocre teams like Washington. They're kind of in a weird spot where Alex Smith went down with an injury, and after that they really couldn't do anything after that. And honestly, I will say this: if Alex Smith would have stayed healthy, the Cowboys would not have won that division. The Washington Redskins would have won that division because Alex Smith was playing that effective football. But the Redskins are at a point where if I'm Jay Gruden, I just give up my walking papers now. There's no way with this team, with a Ryan Tannehill. I've heard an Andy Dalton because of Jay Gruden's connection with Cincinnati. If Bengals try to move on from him, there's no way that he can, with this team as it's presently constructed, have a good enough team for 8 wins. And honestly, again, I thought Jay Gruden should have been fired this year. He was given a pass for the 8-7 in 1 year in 2016. But the last 2 years he's had losing seasons, and if you just keep having losing seasons and want to keep blaming injuries, then Jay Gruden will have a job for life. Because until he has a fully healthy opportunity, he doesn't deserve any criticism or doesn't deserve to lose his job. And then he'll become just like the coach he was under. He'll become one of the Marvin Lewis's of the NFL. But I do not expect Jay Gruden to do well this year. The team is not talented enough or in a position to try to make any effects. And the draft picks they've had, Geis is coming off a blown ACL. Paul Richardson has been injury prone for a while. They're going to probably let go of Jameson Crowder. Jordan Reed, can't stay healthy. This Redskins team is in a very uncomfortable position, and any of the quarterbacks or any of the free agent moves they make will not try to help them. And honestly, if I'm Washington, I try to move on from Gruden, and I try to get rid of some of the expiring contracts, and I go to trying to rebuild this team because you do not know if Alex Smith can come back and play. I hope he does, but we'll see. So there's they got Washington. The Lions were the Lions this year. Kerryon Johnson was probably their best offensive bright spot. It's a shame that he got hurt with his knee and then he went down. But after Golden Tate got traded to Philly, the Lions offense was doing okay, but Stafford ended up having a bad year. They were 6-10, and they're kind of in the same spot as they've been over the last several years. But especially with the Packers getting a new coach, the Bears keeping basically their entire same team, and the Vikings just being better. I think of the Lions. I commend what Bob Quinn said. It's time for the Lion fans to move on from Stat Padford. Stat Padford is a bust. Shout out to Admin Specs. I'm sorry, my friend, but it's time to move on from the stat junkie. Okay? Because that's all Matt Stafford's career is. Matt Stafford's career is a bunch of empty and useless numbers that has amounted to nothing for the Detroit Lions, maybe except 3 playoff appearances. That's it. It's amounted to nothing. And I'm just happy they are finally moving on from him because you need somebody new. You need somebody to build confidence, and Matt Stafford's not going to do it. Matt Stafford will get another job. He's talented enough to be a starter in this league, and he's better than some of the starters in the NFL right now. And honestly, if you want to just talk about pure ability or just, he's the second best quarterback in that division. But when you've been in that job for over 10 years, you have the most passing yards. He's like what Joe Flacco is, except for a losing quarterback. And let me explain that. Joe Flacco, I found this out when they traded him. Joe Flacco has the most completions, most pass attempts, most touchdowns, and most yards for a quarterback that's never made a Pro Bowl. And Joe Flacco's been in the league for over 10 years or for 11 years. Matt Stafford's entering about his 10 for 11 year, and he is the most yards, most passes, and most touchdowns for a losing quarterback in NFL history. That's what I'm saying. For any Stafford defenders out there, give me all the numbers you want. Say it was the Lions are bad. You know what? If he finally moves on, it's whatever. But I'm not a Matt Stafford believer, and Matt Stafford and Matt Patricia and that entire staff to just try to get ready to move on for after next year because I see Matt Patricia and them moving on after another kind of abysmal below 500 year where they're in last place again in the NFC North. Just kind of like my swing around the mediocre. Talk about Jackson. Let's see. Denver and Minnesota. Okay, that one. I'll talk about Denver. Denver was just kind of an unfortunate opportunity where Denver, they were kind of on a little bit of a roll, just like they were in the last few years, but they fizzled out. They had some rough games, rough breaks with the game against the Texans. They had a rough game against the Rams where it was close. They definitely had some opportunities. They lost the game in Oakland. And they lost the game in San Francisco. Yeah, so like the Broncos kind of had this weird year where the Broncos, it wasn't like the Bills where you could feel accomplishment. The Broncos, you kind of felt, underachieving. Chris Harrison went down of injury at the end of the year. The offensive line, two of those main guys went out. Philip Lindsay by the end of the year broke his wrist, which was huge, and I hope he can get healthy because he was one of the more interesting rookie running backs, especially undrafted rookie running backs in the NFL, and I think he broke the record for the most rushing yards by an undrafted rookie running back in NFL history. So good job for him. But again, they traded Demaryius Thomas away. Now Emmanuel Sanders is coming off an Achilles injury himself at his age. They need to keep him. Cortland Sutton did a decent job, but I don't think he made that much of an impact to be effective. The two most effective things the Broncos had were Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, one of the best pass rusher duos in the NFL. But now with Joe Flacco being there, they're also going to move on from Brandon Marshall for money and or for health reasons. I think for John Elway, this is his last shot. If Joe Flacco can't get this team into the playoffs, if he can't get them into the playoffs or winning, well, I'll put it this way: if he can't get the Broncos to a winning record, which is very well possible, because I was talking to somebody and they brought up to me that Joe Flacco and Case Keenum over the last 3 years have basically identical stats, and it's really eerie how close they genuinely are in terms of numbers. So if I'm John Elway and Joe Flacco fails or inevitably does, or if or inevitably when he does, it's time for John Elway to lead the Broncos management because now this is Trevor Siemian, or you can just go back. Ever since signing Peyton Manning, he took Brock Osweiler while Russell Wilson was still on the board. He took a 7th-round pick on Trevor Siemian from Northwestern, the third quarterback in Northwestern history to start. And he's had a middle career, but he blew up. Paxton Lynch, the 20th overall pick that they drafted for, never got a start in the NFL. Chad Kelly, the 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, the nephew of Jim Kelly. He has to end up cutting him for attempting burglary or trespassing, and he gets cut there. Case Keenum, they signed him to a 2-year, $36 million deal, and after 1 year, where Keenum plays like Case Keenum does, they move on from him. Now you got an older, taller version of Case Keenum and Joe Flacco at age 34. If Joe Flacco cannot get this team to a winning record by next year, it is time for John Elway to leave the Broncos organization as general manager because basically his claim to fame, which is a job well done because it got him 5 years on the job, his claim to fame is signing Peyton Manning, which if you're any football fan would have given at least a thought or tried to pursue Peyton Manning for the job. That's not that hard of a decision to make. Also, though, I do think it's quite funny since Manning's left, the Broncos haven't made the playoffs, and the most successful guy that they still have, who still could have been there, is Tebow. So, John, you wanted to move him out of the way. Look at what you got now. You got Joe at an older age, Case Keenum, Paxton Lynch, Osweiler, Simeon. Good luck there. And then the Vikings. Finding out the Vikings to me is the Vikings prove why, as a person, I do not support fully guaranteed contracts. Thank you, Kirk Cousins, for showing everybody why you do not pay fully guaranteed contracts to any professional athlete. Because he bombed miserably. And it's not about the numbers. Kirk Cousins, we know, can throw a football to receivers, to running backs, and he can throw it into people's hands. He just doesn't win. He can't give you the big time wins in the big situations. He has that embarrassing loss against Buffalo on his resume. He couldn't beat Seattle in a game that was pretty competitive where Russell Wilson threw for 70 yards. He looked like a twig against Chicago. He tied against the Packers. And this guy is due another $60 million over the next 2 years that they can't get rid of. You enjoy that misery, Minnesota. You enjoy it. Because Kirk Cousins may not get you into the playoffs again. He should. That NFC, he's talented enough, and that team is talented enough to at least make a wild card run. But if he can't get into the playoffs again for a second straight year, it's time for Mike Zimmer to go. I thought Mike Zimmer should have been fired this year because the expectation was too high, and they fell woefully, miserably, pathetically short of what the Vikings needed to get to for Vikings fans to think this season was a success. But if he does it again next year, it's definitely time for Mike Zimmer to go, and I'm not going to have any shame in it because he, never bought into Case Keenum. He bought into Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins in this offense with Flip and Stefanski now, Kubiak's there, all they could do was end up being second and choke out a performance and choke out a playoff opportunity by the Eagles, who ended up, being a much more respectable playoff team than what I thought the Vikings could be. So, there was that. Let's see, a few of the other stories. I thought Chicago was definitely Chicago and the Chargers were two very good surprises to me. Chicago has a lot of optimism going for them. Though they lost Fangio, they're bringing in Pagano. I think Pagano will do well. He's not as talented as Fangio, But Pagano definitely has enough defensive experience, and he knows Fangio from his days in Baltimore that Pagano can move that defense well. And also, Chuck will give them security because he said that he will not take another head coaching job, and he could be basically for Matt Nagy what Jim Johnson was for Andy Reid. But I do want to say I do think the Bears should be the second team in the NFC to try to come out of it. I think that again they have confidence. Basically that entire team is going to come back. I like Trubisky moved up a decent step. He needs to go up to that third step this coming year. He definitely has shown a good amount of athleticism. They're going to keep Howard. They're going to keep Cohen together for another year, which can be great. They still have Robinson going deep. They have Taylor Gabriel as a burner. They have Trey Burton, Zach Miller. They're going to have Anthony Miller, I believe, will still be there. Bellamy is a free agent, but you can move on from him. And that defense is all going to still be around. And I just like this Bears team and the confidence they have moving forward. The Chargers, same thing. This was like the first time in a few years that the Chargers actually had a great start. They were able to keep that momentum pretty well going until they ran into the Patriots. But that's the problem because I think a lot of people lost overall respect for the Chargers because a lot of people thought the Chargers should have beaten them. I did not think that was going to happen because the Patriots were at home and they should have won. And I was right about that. But nobody expected the Chargers with that much talent to look that pathetic in the AFC divisional round in a game on the road, or just the year before, with most of that roster there, they ended up in an 8-point game that ended up being the difference by an interception and a safety in the end zone by Travis Benjamin screwing up. I do think the Chargers, they should be a playoff team again, but as long as the Chiefs are in their way, even though they had the last win over them, they've won about, I think they said, 9 of the last 10 meetings, or 10 of the last 11 meetings against the Chiefs. Or the Chiefs they've lost 10 of the last 11 meetings against the Chiefs. And that continues to happen. The Chargers are going to end up in the wild card again. And you're going to get to the point where Phillip Rivers and the Chargers are going to be in that, Bengals of 2011, the Texans maybe now, the Steelers, where people are not going to care how much the Chargers make the playoffs. It's until they can win consistently enough to get to the championship game or get to the AFC championship game where people are going to matter or people are going to care. And I also do want to say for the Chargers, time to start thinking about who can we get. They are going to be in the Tua area, I think. They need to consider trying to get Tua Tagovailoa or the year after Trevor Lawrence from Clemson because you need to start thinking about changing the quarterback because Phillip Rivers has shown to you at this point, especially after that last game, who Phillip Rivers is. A very talented quarterback, the modern-day Dan Fouts of the Chargers, but not a winner. 0-8 against Tom Brady all time. It probably will be 0-9, or he could have 10 straight losses to him for his career at some point. So we'll see on that. There were those two. I talked about the Ravens already. Talked about the Texans. Talked about Indy. The big Final Four. The Colts. The Chiefs. Phenomenal year. Patrick Mahomes proved the Chiefs right for trading away Alex Smith. Patrick Mahomes is going to be the franchise quarterback. He probably is their most talented pure quarterback ever. And I think the Chiefs are in a fantastic position offensively moving forward. Though they do have two big free agents coming up, Patrick Mahomes himself and Tyreek Hill. They will have to pay big time money for those two guys. And I thought Damian Williams is well enough to keep the running back head job for the Chiefs going into next year. I know Kareem Hunt, good luck to him going to Cleveland. But I look at the Chiefs in a way that they are the best team, bar none, to challenge the Patriots. Their biggest offseason aspects are going to be, are they going to trade? Are they going to try to move on from Justin Houston? Can they re-sign Dee Ford? Are they going to trade Eric Berry? Are they going to, do some other moves to help try to improve this defense? Can they re-sign Steven Nelson? The Chiefs have a lot of moving pieces that they're going to have to consider. And can Andy Reid with Steve Spagnuolo create a defense that can be more effective than Sutton's pathetic one that he had last time? So there's the Chiefs, the Saints. It's going to be a motivating year, but I think with how Drew played, they're going to still make the playoffs. They're still going to be effective, and they still probably going to win the division. But Drew Brees in these big time games, as time goes on, will become less and less effective. That will cause the Saints not to win the Super Bowl. Controversial call or not, because honestly, if you're a football fan, look at what Drew Brees did. Those at ever since that Cowboys game. He couldn't do anything after that. And I think that'll be more of the common part than the abnormality moving forward with Drew. So we'll see. Then the Rams and Pats. The Rams, job well done. They got to the Super Bowl, but for Sean McVay, Jared Goff, Wade Phillips, the offensive guys, the Todd Gurleys. And by the way, I think Sean McVay over this offseason genuinely has to tell us what is Todd Gurley dealing with. Because Todd Gurley in the last 2 games of the season, in the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, had 15 total carries. This is the highest paid running back in football. I know C.J. Anderson was a great story, and he was definitely one of the biggest reason why you were able to beat the Cowboys the way you did, because he ran for 173 total yards. But in the Super Bowl, in a game where Wade Phillips puts on a masterpiece of a defensive performance, that much talent, and you can't even let him get on the field that often, or he's just walking around, that's a problem. And for Todd Gurley himself, what I'm telling you right now is this, Todd, you got to be a little more supportive. You got to be a little more vocal, my friend, because I understand that team respect thing, and I'm usually a person that likes to, but 98 to 99% of the time, respect that. But you know what that tells me, and maybe I'm kind of looking a little too deep in this? Todd Gurley may not care about winning. Todd Gurley got paid. Todd Gurley got what Le'Veon wants, and Le'Veon didn't get. So, Todd Gurley's looking at that $60 million contract. He's just looking back going, you know what? That's coach's decision. I'm Todd Gurley. I was basically one of the leading rushers. I was the best running back in football the entire most of the year. But, with my injuries or whatever, it's whatever. And to me, that's a kind of disappointing stance to have, especially in those big games. The Rams got away with it in the championship game, but if that pass interference call goes correctly, that's not going to be the case, and the Rams are going to have much more questions to deal with. And I think for a lot of general fans, not only in an emotional sense that they agreed with Saints fans, but just in a pure game sense, I think a lot more people would have watched the Super Bowl if the Saints would have played, because you knew the Saints offense was not going to be that bad when they put up 3 points. Because the Rams-Patriots game, the lowest in 10 years, or lowest since 2009. Had 100 million people watching the Super Bowl. And for the NFL, yeah, that's a phenomenal number in probably most other TV areas in other genres. But for the Super Bowl, that's pretty bad. And I think the game was the predominant reason. There were other reasons. Halftime was boring, and I do understand kind of the political aspect of it. But that's what Saints fans know. That if the NFL wanted better ratings, the Saints would have given it to them. Having Breeze and Belichick go at it, or Belichick and Payton going at it, Breeze and Brady going at it, and they would have put up more than 3 points on a Patriots defense, which at times this year has looked pretty pathetic. Just look at the Jags game, look at the Lions game, look at the Titans game, look at the Dolphins game. And for the Patriots, you know what? It's just business as usual. Job well done. Do your job, and as Belichick says, the word that's applied there is well. 6-time Super Bowl champs, 3 rings in the last 5 years. And what this I will explain to people is this: Belichick, it doesn't matter what scandals going around. Spygate, Deflategate, whatever gate, Mike Tomlin gate when in week 1 of the 15 season. What it's telling you is this: everybody that wants to, bash on the Patriots, I get it. It's frustrating as ever to see a team that dominant continuously win this often, because it's not fair. But you know what? Beat them. Because you can now, that's the thing. We're going on 5 seasons moved on from Deflategate. And genuinely, I believe this. They still had a dynastic run in past Deflategate. Since 2015, 4 straight AFC Championship games. 3 out of the last 4 Super Bowls. They've won 2 of the last 4 Super Bowls. And that's in the last 4 years post Deflategate. It doesn't matter what they have. And people can believe that they're hiding stuff and whatever. Sure, maybe that's, you know, sure that's what you can believe, but I think that's just going really down far a rabbit hole at this point. If you really believe that there's stories of the Patriots that people are just burying or they're catching and killing, in terms of the media, they're a great dynasty. They're a great dynasty. They win because they have a culture and a system that's worked better than anything in the NFL has seen ever. And as long as Brady wants to play, as long as Belichick wants to coach, they should be the favorite every year to at least make it out of the AFC, and every year to make the Super Bowl as long as those two are together. I don't care what anybody says. You can buy you can have your Mahomes. To quote I'll take my Brady and the Patriots. That's thing. I don't personally like it, but as someone that's watched the games for over this 2019 season with my 12th year watching football pretty much full time, there is nothing more impressive and marveling to watch as the Patriots' consistency year after year after year after year. Because that's hard. And sports is the only genre of entertainment or in life that we hate. People, if you really think about it, people didn't look at American Idol and when they were number one in television year after year after year after year and say, we hate American Idol. Why do people watch it? Well, why? No, people didn't do that. People didn't do that with products. When you have a great product, people don't do that with products. When you have the number one product year after year after year, you keep buying those products because that's what sells to you. That's confidence. That's reliability. That's validity. That's what you want. In products, in your entertainment. But in sports, no. We don't like consistency like that. But we'll see. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on this past season and a couple things that they'll be really interesting that I'm looking forward to. It's definitely the free agency period. Guys like Le'Veon Bell, DeMarcus Lawrence, Ziggy Ansah, Golden Tate, Brandon Marshall, Glover Quinn, who just got cut by the Lions. There's gonna be other guys, Nick Foles. There's plenty. This is the most depth of talent, especially a quarterback and other positions the NFL has seen in terms of possibly moving from team to team in a long time. And I think for the first time in a little while, the NFL offseason can be just as dramatic and big as the NBA offseasons have become the last couple of years. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the combine, just seeing all those guys out there. Looking forward to the draft as always, and the NFL Top 100. And I may, especially when the Top 100 starts, I may consider doing a little series on that, talking about what my thoughts were on the NFL Top 100 players series. So I may consider doing that. And let me, and please, put in the comment section, let me know what would you guys think about it if I did a NFL Top 100 series this May, or when it starts, about what I thought about the list every week. So yeah. Let's see, there was a draft and all that, and that's it. So until next time, this is Matthew the Fanatic signing off for the season. I want to thank everybody for watching the videos, putting comments, liking them, and just providing me a lot of good and constructive feedback about my picks in the overall year. I always enjoy doing this every year, and I'm already looking forward to next September, right around Labor Day, to start it all over once again. So until next time, this is Matthew the Fanatic signing off. Until then, so long.